So how much time do I have to present?
8 to 10.
All righty, I'll talk really fast. So I have a lot of chicken scratch here, and maybe I'll save it. I'll prioritize because a lot may come up in questions. So, but just very quickly, my 1 minute on what we do, just to ground myself and to ground you in who I am. Wellness in the Schools sends cooks into the kitchen and classrooms and coaches onto the recess yard. Together, we reinvent the school lunch experience. So healthy lunch, positive recess, back to class, ready to focus and learn, with the long-term goal that we're teaching life skills and forming habits for a lifetime of good health. So we work in schools, and then you can read the facts about how big we are and what we've been doing, I think, right? So just very quickly to answer sort of what Jan charged me with. Again, a little all over the place, but I think maybe to segue, an important segue is first, and this may sound obvious, but for someone who's worked in the DOE and now with the DOE for probably over 20 years now. I've seen many a mandate come down and nothing happens. This matters. I've seen the results of the CNR in my face immediately, and that's probably because it came with money. So in the form of school lunches, that was 6 cents per child. And you really, I was like probably the only one in my organization shocked, because I'm the only one who'd worked so long in the DOE. I'm like, really? Because you get so many non-funded mandates and no one does anything. But this really happened. And what we saw, obviously when it comes down with money, there are major regulations. So the negative that we saw is that we lost flexibility. And that was sort of something that we hung our hat on, and I see one of our cooks nodding in the back, Ellen. That was how we were able to provide a different kind of food for different populations of children, how we were able to play with the typical school lunch meal. So losing flexibility was a big issue. I will say, and I don't know if my colleagues agree with me, it's trickling back thanks to all of our push. So now we can serve a black bean or a red bean, and that sounds... I know you laugh, but it's actually really important. And if we can start to get the beans to be able to change, we can go back to getting the chicken to change. And that was a big change for us. We can, instead of a chicken finger on a plate, we can order the commodity chicken on the bone and do a lot more with that, a homemade rub, a homemade sauce, as opposed to just a chicken finger, right? And we also saw immediately a different color vegetable every day. Sounds silly, but that was one of the nutrition regs. So yes, it was red, and then it was orange, and then it was green, and that happened. I couldn't believe it in front of my face. What we didn't really see, one more thing that we saw, again in front of our face, is just, as Jan was saying, sort of these after-school programs and lots of other programs doing more around nutrition. We would be getting calls from studio in a school. We want to do a nutrition program. They're an arts program, so we were painting still lifes with fruits and vegetables. You really were starting to see this come from everywhere. I would joke and say underwater basket weaving companies are adding nutrition to their mission statement. That was a joke, but anyway, so we saw it happening more and more. What we didn't necessarily see with the new nutrition standards was, our dream, and what we are still doing in our very few schools, and that's more scratch cooking and basil taken from your garden and then made into a pesto. We're seeing things in a box still, but with sort of new regulations. So maybe the white flour was now wheat flour, but it was still flour with 20 other ingredients made into a chicken finger. So we're still seeing that, and we're still fighting that. But in our schools, we also are still making basil with pesto. Pesto with basil. And we're still making homemade barbecue sauce, and we've moved from ketchup and jelly, sugar to more other ingredients for the barbecue sauce. So that's what we're seeing. And one other quick change that we saw is the salad bars, which you see here, were a really great place for change, really great place, probably because they aren't regulated, they're not part of the reimbursable. So we could play with the salad bar and do a lot with the salad bar. And with the new regulations, we could no longer put protein or grains on the salad bar. So it became more limited. All those pasta salads we had to take off. Beans are both a protein and a vegetable, so we can get the bean salads on the salad bar. So those are just the nuts and bolts of what we saw. I think I'll just quickly jump to what I've learned. I've learned a lot. I won't talk about general learning, but learning vis-a-vis the CNR. And I think two things. one, I'd like to see more training for staff, for school food workers. What we do is our cooks come in and train the lunch workers on the implementation of the alternative menu. But with new regulations, we'd like to see that alternative menu become the norm, and therefore more training and more dollars put into training of school food workers. And also, this is sort of maybe ambiguous and vague and pie in the sky, but more of a priority in schools in general around fitness and health, for principals to better understand that those are going to impact their test scores. And 5 minutes still? Oh. I have a lot to say. No, I'm just kidding. So those are two of the things that I would like to see more of. What we've learned just in general. So I have sort of two different buckets, and if I sound like I'm contradicting myself, I probably am, because the one bucket is sort of, if there's a will, there's a way. Or otherwise, probably better said, persistence, persistence, persistence. Like if we want this change to happen, I promise you it can and it will. And for those of you who know the history of my organization, you'll understand what I'm talking about. You cannot give up. And it's really, when people ask me sort of what are the big challenges to providing better food for children, my main challenge is sort of mentality and attitude about wanting that. And that people still think that children would prefer chicken fingers and French fries. That's all they're going to eat. And people really think that. So I know everyone in this room thinks that's crazy. And so if we can start shifting attitudes and mentality and willingness to make this change, it really will happen. So that's sort of I don't want to say that in a Pollyanna, naive way, but it's really, really true. And then on the other hand, on the other side of that is that change is really hard, and that it takes a very long time. And in some ways, I feel like I've been at this for just 1 minute, but then I think about the many years that I've been doing this, and that change has happened over those years and not over that 1 minute. And some of the ways that we've been able to make change in school is number one, or the ways that it's easy, is that when the school leadership is on board, sort of back to my other point about principals knowing that healthy food and fitness are important for test scores. So when the principal's on board, if a principal asks us to be in their school, in his or her school, then we have immediate success. If it comes from a parent or from other organizations, it's not as successful, but we have success, but down the road. But as soon as a school leader asks us, we really do have immediate success. And the educational piece, I didn't really talk at all about that, but our cooks, who are real change agents in those schools, are not only in the cafeteria training on the implementation of this menu, but they also are teaching a seasonal tasting class throughout the school year, throughout 3 years. We actually have a series of 10 classes. Those classes are actually a gimmick for marketing the cafeteria food, because they teach everything, 1 minute, that is being, what they're learning in the classroom they're also eating in the cafeteria. So they make in the fall a tomato sauce that goes on their pasta. They make an applesauce that used to go on the salad bar. They make, in the winter, 2 different bean dishes, either a vegetarian chili or a hummus, both in the cafeteria. And the aha moment of, this is so good, when's it going to be in the cafeteria? And it's been there for the whole year. And it'll be there on Monday, and then they all eat it. If you cook it, you're going to eat it. So those classes were specifically designed to get the kids to eat the cafeteria food. So all I'm saying in this long story is that the educational piece is so huge and so important. You can't just throw a tofu or organic quinoa on a child's plate without really explaining the why and the how and the fun and the deliciousness, right? So the education, the marketing of the food, the tastings, and then the last thing I'll say in my 2 seconds is how important, and Jan touched on this, partnerships are in this world. And people I sit on panels, we're such a small space. We see each other all the time, and we really rely on the work of each other. In my world, it's School Food Focus is probably again, so many great partners, but School Food Focus is looking at procurement at a larger level, and that is so helpful to me. To cook good food, you need that food. You don't just need a box. So all of these partnerships are so integral to the work that we do, and we really do need to do this together.
Hear, hear. Thank you.